Captain Maya Rodriguez adjusted her flight helmet one more time as she walked across the tarmac at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. The morning sun cast long shadows between the rows of Apache helicopters, their deadly silhouettes looking like sleeping predators. At 28, Maya had logged more combat hours than most pilots twice her age, but you wouldn't know it from the way her fellow aviators treated her. Well, if it isn't our little princess, called out Major Derek Stone from beside his Apache. His crew chief snickered as Maya passed. Hope you remembered to pack your makeup kit for today's mission. Maya kept walking, her jaw tight. She'd heard it all before. In her 6 years of service, she'd proven herself time and again, but some people would never see past her gender. At 5'4" with dark hair always pulled back in a regulation bun, Maya looked nothing like the stereotype of a combat pilot. That was their mistake, not hers, Rodriguez. Colonel James Mitchell's voice boomed across the flight line. Maya quickened her pace toward the mission briefing hangar. Inside, a dozen pilots and crew members were gathered around a large map of Afghanistan. The room went quiet as she entered. Gentlemen and lady, Colonel Mitchell began with a slight nod toward Maya. We have a situation. Alpha Team, a 6-man SEAL unit, has been conducting reconnaissance in the Cunha province for the past 72 hours. Their extraction was scheduled for 0600 this morning, but we lost contact with them 12 hours ago. Maya studied the map intently. The Cunha province was known for its rugged terrain and heavy Taliban presence. Dense forests and steep mountain valleys made it perfect for ambushes. Intelligence suggests they're pinned down in a valley approximately 15 clicks northeast of their original position, the colonel continued. We're sending in 2 extraction teams. Stone, you'll lead the primary team with Martinez as your wingman. Rodriguez, you'll provide overwatch from the East Ridge. Maya's hand shot up. Sir, with respect, wouldn't it make more sense to? The decision is made, Captain. Colonel Mitchell cut her off. You'll maintain position and only engage if absolutely necessary. This is a precision operation, not a demolition derby. Several pilots chuckled. Maya felt her cheeks burn, but she kept her expression neutral. She'd been relegated to backup duty again, despite having the most experience in mountain warfare among the group. Major Stone leaned back in his chair with a smirk. Don't worry, Princess. We'll handle the heavy lifting. You just keep your bird steady and try not to get in the way. That's enough, Stone, Colonel Mitchell said, though his tone lacked conviction. Wheels up in 30 minutes. Dismissed. As the room emptied, Maya lingered by the map. She traced the terrain with her finger, noting the elevation changes and potential approach routes. Something about this mission felt off. The valley where the SEALs were supposedly trapped was a natural kill zone, exactly where an experienced team would never allow themselves to get cornered. Having second thoughts, asked Captain Lisa Park, the only other female pilot in the unit. Lisa flew transport helicopters and was one of the few people who treated Maya with respect. Just studying the terrain, Maya replied. This doesn't add up. Alpha Team is led by Chief Petty Officer Marcus Thompson. I've worked with him before. He's too smart to get trapped in that valley. Lisa looked at the map. Maybe they didn't have a choice. Enemy contact can force you into bad positions. Maya shook her head. Thompson would have found another way. There's something we're not seeing. 20 minutes later, Maya was performing her pre-flight inspection of her Apache. The AH-64D was a magnificent machine, 30 feet of rotors, engines, and weaponry that could deliver devastating firepower with surgical precision. Her crew chief, Sergeant Tony Ramirez, was making final adjustments to the Hellfire missiles. Mounted on the aircraft's stub wings. She's ready to dance, Captain, Ramirez said with a grin. He'd been Maya's crew chief for 2 years and had complete faith in her abilities, even if others didn't. Thanks, Tony. Keep monitoring the radio frequencies. If something goes sideways, I want to know about it immediately. Maya climbed into the cockpit and began her startup sequence. The twin General Electric engines wound up with their distinctive whine, and the 4-blade rotor system began to turn. Through her helmet's display, she could see Stone and Martinez lifting off from the flight line. As her Apache rose into the Kentucky morning, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that they were flying into a trap. She'd learned to trust her instincts. Over the years, they'd kept her alive through 3 combat deployments. Today, those instincts were screaming warnings. The flight to Afghanistan would take them through several refueling stops. Giving Maya plenty of time to think, she reviewed everything she knew about the mission and the missing SEAL team. Chief Thompson was a 15-year veteran with an impeccable record. His team included some of the Navy's best operators. For them to simply disappear suggested either overwhelming enemy force or something more sinister. During the refueling stop in Germany, Maya approached Colonel Mitchell. "Sir, I'd like to request permission to review the intelligence reports on Alpha Team's mission." The colonel looked annoyed. "Captain, your job is to provide overwatch, not to second-guess intelligence. Stay focused on your assigned role." "With respect, sir, I've worked with Chief Thompson before. His team's behavior doesn't match the intelligence assessment. I think you think too much, Rodriguez. That's always been your problem." Colonel Mitchell's voice carried a note of finality. "Stick to your orders and let the men handle the complicated stuff." Maya felt a familiar surge of anger, but she pushed it down. Getting emotional would only reinforce their prejudices. Instead, she nodded and walked away, but her determination had only grown stronger. Back in her quarters, Maya called her younger brother Miguel, who was stationed at Fort Bragg as an intelligence analyst. They'd always been close, and he understood the challenges she faced as one of the few women in combat aviation. "Maya, you sound stressed," Miguel said over the secure connection. "I am. Something's not right about this mission, but nobody wants to listen to me. What's your gut telling you?" Maya smiled despite her frustration. Miguel was the only person who truly understood how her mind worked. "That we're walking into an ambush. The missing SEAL team, the location, the timing, it all feels like a setup." "Then trust your instincts. You've never been wrong before." After the call, Maya spent hours studying satellite imagery and intelligence reports she'd managed to access through her security clearance. The more she looked, the more convinced she became that Alpha Team hadn't been ambushed, they'd been betrayed. The next morning, as they prepared for the final leg of their journey into Afghanistan, Maya made a decision that would change everything. She would follow orders and maintain Overwatch position, but she would also be ready for anything. If her suspicions were correct, Stone and Martinez would need all the help they could get. As her Apache lifted off from the forward operating base in Afghanistan, Maya whispered a prayer for the missing SEALs and for the mission ahead. In the distance, the mountains of Kunar province rose like ancient sentinels, hiding secrets that would soon be revealed. The morning sun painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson, but Maya couldn't shake the feeling that before the day was over, that sky would be filled with fire and thunder. The flight into Kunar province took Maya's breath away. Despite her years of experience flying over Afghanistan's rugged terrain, the Hindu Kush mountains stretched endlessly in every direction, their snow-capped peaks piercing a brilliant blue sky. But Maya knew that beneath the scenic beauty lay one of the most dangerous regions in the world. "Overwatch, this is Lead," Major Stone's voice crackled through her headset. "We're approaching the target area. Maintain your position on the east ridge and keep your eyes open." "Copy, Lead. Overwatch in position," Maya responded, though she was still 5 minutes out from her assigned location. As she guided her Apache toward the designated Overwatch position, Maya studied the valley below. Through her targeting system, the terrain was exactly as brutal as she'd expected. Steep walls on 3 sides with only one narrow entrance. If the SEALs were really trapped down there, they were in serious trouble. But something caught her attention. Through her thermal imaging, she could see heat signatures that didn't match the intelligence reports. Instead of a small group of Taliban fighters, there appeared to be at least 30 enemy combatants positioned throughout the valley. More concerning, they were positioned not around the supposed SEAL location, but along the flight paths that Stone and Martinez would use for their approach. "Lead, this is Overwatch," Maya radioed. "I'm seeing significantly more enemy activity than reported. Recommend we reassess the situation before proceeding." "Negative. Overwatch intelligence reports are solid. Maintain position and radio silence, unless absolutely necessary." Maya gritted her teeth. Stone's arrogance was going to get people killed. She continued her approach to the Overwatch position, but kept her weapon systems hot and ready. Through her headset, she could hear the radio chatter between Stone and Martinez as they approached the valley. Their confidence was evident, but Maya's unease continued to grow. She'd learned to trust her instincts, and right now they were screaming warnings. "Martinez, you see those heat signatures on the south wall?" Stone's voice had lost some of its earlier cockiness. "Affirmative. That's more than the 20 fighters intelligence reported." Maya wanted to key her radio and say, "I told you so," but that wouldn't help anyone. Instead, she positioned her Apache to give her the best possible view of the entire valley. What she saw made her blood run cold. The enemy fighters weren't randomly positioned, they were arranged in a coordinated ambush formation, with multiple firing positions covering every possible escape route. This wasn't a group of Taliban fighters who had stumbled across the SEAL team. This was a carefully planned trap. Lead, Martinez, you need to abort immediately, Maya radioed, breaking radio silence. This is a coordinated ambush. I count at least 40 fighters in defensive positions. Overwatch, maintain radio silence, Stone snapped back. We have our orders. Maya watched in horror as Stone's Apache descended toward the valley floor. The enemy fighters held their fire, waiting for both helicopters to commit to the attack. It was a textbook ambush, and Stone was flying right into it. I can see the SEAL position, Martinez reported. Looks like they're holed up in a cave system on the north wall. Maya focused her optics on the supposed SEAL position. What she saw confirmed her worst fears. The heat signatures were wrong to stationary, too perfectly positioned. Those weren't SEALs taking cover, they were enemy fighters using the radio beacon from Alpha Team's equipment to bait the trap. Lead, those aren't our people, Maya shouted into her radio. The SEAL position is a fake. It's part of the ambush. But it was too late. The moment Stone's Apache crossed into the valley, the mountains erupted in gunfire. Rocket-propelled grenades streaked through the air, and heavy machine gun fire poured down from multiple positions. Stone's helicopter shuddered under the impact of several hits. Taking heavy fire. Taking heavy fire. Stone's voice was panicked now. Martinez, get us some cover fire. Maya didn't wait for orders. She dove her Apache toward the valley, her 30mm chain gun already spinning up to firing speed. Her first burst caught a group of fighters on the south wall, the explosive rounds turning their position into flying debris and dust. This is Overwatch engaging, she announced over the radio, though she knew she was disobeying direct orders. The next few minutes were a deadly dance of fire and maneuver. Maya used her Apache's superior speed and agility to dart in and out of the valley, striking enemy positions while avoiding the increasingly desperate return fire. Her years of training and combat experience took over, and she became one with her machine. Stone's helicopter was badly damaged, smoke pouring from its engine compartment. Martinez was trying to provide cover, but he was outnumbered and outgunned. Maya realized that if she didn't act decisively, both aircraft and their crews would be lost. Lead, you need to climb out of the valley now, Maya ordered. I'll cover your withdrawal. Negative, Stone replied, his pride still intact despite the desperate situation. We don't abandon missions. Maya cursed under her breath. Stone's arrogance was going to get them all killed. She made a split-second decision that would haunt her for years to come. Breaking from her covering position, she flew directly into the heaviest concentration of enemy fire. Drawing their attention away from Stone's damaged helicopter, the enemy fighters took the bait, turning their weapons toward her Apache. Tracers filled the air around her like deadly fireflies, and she felt several impacts on her aircraft's armored hull. But her sacrifice gave Stone the opening he needed. Lead is climbing out, Stone finally announced. Overwatch, disengage and follow. But Maya couldn't disengage. She'd spotted something that changed everything, a group of American prisoners being held in a compound at the far end of the valley. Through her thermal imaging, she could see 6 figures with American heat signatures, bound and guarded by enemy fighters. The real Alpha Team was down there, and they were still alive. I've found our people, Maya radioed. Alpha Team is alive, but they're prisoners in a compound at the valley's east end. Overwatch, disengage immediately. Colonel Mitchell's voice cut through the radio chatter. He'd been monitoring the mission from the command post. That's a direct order. Maya faced an impossible choice. She could follow orders and abandon the SEAL team to certain death, or she could disobey direct orders from her commanding officer and attempt a rescue that would likely get her court-martialed if she survived. She thought about Chief Thompson and his team, men she'd worked with before. They were fathers, husbands, sons. They deserved better than to be abandoned because of someone else's failed mission planning. Negative command, Maya said, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. I'm not leaving our people behind. As she spoke, another RPG exploded nearby, close enough to rock her Apache and fill the cockpit with the acrid smell of smoke. Maya knew she was running out of time and ammunition. Stone and Martinez were already climbing towards safety, leaving her alone in the valley with 40 enemy fighters and 6 American prisoners. But Maya Rodriguez had never backed down from a fight, and she wasn't about to start now. She lined up her Apache for another attack run, knowing that the next few minutes would determine whether 6 American heroes went home to their families, or whether they all died together in this forgotten valley in Afghanistan. The mountain walls echoed with the thunder of her rotors as she prepared to face impossible odds. In her heart, she knew this was what she'd trained for her entire career, not to follow orders blindly, but to do what was right, regardless of the cost. Maya's Apache shuddered as another RPG exploded dangerously close to her tail rotor. Warning lights flashed across her instrument panel, and she could feel the aircraft's response becoming sluggish. She was running out of time, ammunition, and options. Through her targeting system, she kept eyes on the compound where the 6 American prisoners were being held. She could see enemy fighters moving them, likely preparing to execute them now that their trap had been partially successful. The thought of those brave men dying because of someone else's incompetence filled Maya with a cold rage. Overwatch, this is command. Colonel Mitchell's voice was ice cold over the radio. You are ordered to withdraw immediately. Do not engage the compound. Maya's finger hovered over the radio transmit button. She could acknowledge the order, climb out of this hellish valley, and return to base. She'd followed orders her entire career, even when those orders came from men who doubted her abilities, but this time was different. This time, American lives hung in the balance. Command, this is Overwatch, she replied, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. I have visual confirmation of 6 American prisoners. I cannot abandon them. Captain Rodriguez, if you disobey this direct order, you will face court-martial. Your career will be over. Maya thought about her career, 6 years of proving herself over and over again, only to be relegated to backup roles and treated like a second-class soldier. She thought about her father, a Marine who'd taught her that some things were more important than personal advancement. She thought about Chief Thompson and his team, men who'd never hesitated to put their lives on the line for their country. Sir, some things are more important than careers. The radio went silent. Maya knew she'd just ended her military future, but she felt a strange sense of peace. For the first time in years, she was doing exactly what she knew was right, regardless of the consequences. Maya banked her Apache toward the compound, her 30mm chain gun already targeting the guard positions. She had perhaps a dozen rounds left for her main gun and 2 Hellfire missiles. Against 40 enemy fighters, it wasn't much, but it would have to be enough. Her first gun run was devastating. The explosive rounds tore through the compound's walls, sending enemy fighters diving for cover. She could see the American prisoners taking advantage of the chaos, working to free themselves from their bonds, but the enemy response was swift and coordinated. Heavy machine gun fire erupted from multiple positions, and Maya felt several impacts on her aircraft's armor. A warning tone sounded in her headset. Her hydraulic system was losing pressure. Come on, girl, Maya whispered to her Apache. Just a little longer. She came around for another pass, this time targeting a group of fighters who were closing in on the Americans' position. Her chain gun spoke again, clearing a path for the prisoners to reach better cover. But Maya's ammunition counter showed she was down to her last few rounds. Through her thermal imaging, she watched Chief Thompson. She recognized his distinctive movement, patterned from previous missions, leading his team toward a defensive position among some rocky outcroppings. They were moving well despite their injuries, but they were still surrounded and outnumbered. Maya's radio crackled with an unexpected transmission. Overwatch, this is Alpha Team Leader. Thanks for the cover fire. We're in position to move, but we need extraction. It was Chief Thompson's voice, and Maya had never been happier to hear anything in her life. Alpha Team, this is Overwatch, working on extraction options. Stay in cover. But Maya's own situation was deteriorating rapidly. Her hydraulic failure was getting worse, making the Apache increasingly difficult to control. Fuel was running low from combat maneuvering, and her ammunition was nearly exhausted. She couldn't land in the valley to extract the SEAL team. It would be suicide. Then she remembered something from her tactical training. Sometimes the best way to solve an impossible problem was to change the parameters of the problem itself. Maya keyed her radio to the emergency frequency. Any coalition aircraft. Any coalition aircraft. This is Overwatch requesting immediate assistance. 6 American prisoners need extraction in Kunar province. Grid reference follows. For several long moments there was no response. Maya continued to circle the valley, using her remaining ammunition sparingly to keep enemy fighters away from the SEAL team's position. Her Apache was barely flyable now, and she knew she had maybe 10 minutes before she'd be forced to attempt an emergency landing. Then a voice she didn't recognize came over the radio. Overwatch, this is Warrior 6. 4 F-16S, inbound to your location, ETA, 8 minutes. Can you mark targets? Maya felt a surge of hope. Warrior 6. Affirmative. I can mark targets, but I'm low on fuel and ammunition. Also have 6 friendlies in the valley who need extraction. Copy. Overwatch. We'll handle the hostiles. Extraction birds are scrambling from Bagram. Hold position if you can. 8 minutes felt like 8 hours. Maya nursed her damaged Apache through the air, using every trick she'd learned to keep the aircraft flying. The enemy fighters had realized that help was coming and were making a desperate push toward the SEAL team's position. Maya used her last Hellfire missile to break up the attack, the explosive warhead turning a machine gun position into smoking rubble. But she was completely out of ammunition now, and her fuel gauge was showing critical levels. Then she heard the most beautiful sound in the world, the roar of jet engines echoing off the valley walls. 4 F-16 Fighting Falcons appeared over the ridgeline, their weapons pylons loaded with precision munitions. Overwatch. This is Warrior Lead. We have eyes on your position. Light up the targets. Maya used her laser designator to mark enemy positions. Throughout the valley, the F-16's response was swift and decisive. Precision bombs turned enemy strongpoints into craters, while 20mm cannon fire swept through their ranks. In less than 5 minutes, the valley went from a chaotic battlefield to a smoking graveyard. Alpha Team, this is Overwatch. Valley is secure. Extraction birds, inbound. Copy. Overwatch. We're ready for pickup. Maya's fuel warning light was now flashing red, and her hydraulic system had finally given up completely. She was flying on manual control now, fighting to keep her Apache in the air through sheer force of will and years of experience. 2 Black Hawks appeared over the ridgeline, escorted by another pair of Apaches. Maya had never been so happy to see reinforcements in her life. She watched as the Black Hawks descended into the valley and picked up Chief Thompson's team. All 6 SEALs were alive, though several appeared to be wounded. Overwatch, this is Rescue 1. Alpha Team is secure. What's your status? Maya looked at her instrument panel. Every warning light was illuminated, and she could feel the aircraft shaking itself apart. Rescue 1, I'm running on fumes and flying manual. I'll try to make it back to base. Negative. Overwatch, we have a maintenance crew at Forward Base Alpha, 15 clicks south. Can you make it that far? Maya did some quick calculations. With her current fuel state and the aircraft's condition, it would be close, very close. I'll try. Rescue 1. As Maya nursed her dying Apache toward the forward base, she reflected on the day's events. She'd disobeyed direct orders, ended her military career, and nearly gotten herself killed. But 6 American heroes were going home to their families because of her choice. For Maya Rodriguez, that made it all worthwhile. The forward base appeared ahead, its runway a welcome sight in the gathering dusk. Maya's Apache coughed and shuddered as she lined up for approach, and she knew she had perhaps one chance to get this landing right. As her damaged aircraft touched down in a shower of sparks, Maya whispered a prayer of thanks. She'd made it, and more importantly, so had Alpha Team. But Maya knew her real battle was just beginning. Soon she'd face the consequences of disobeying orders, and her career would likely be over. However, as she shut down her Apache's engines and climbed out of the cockpit, Maya felt no regret. Some fights were worth the cost. The morning after the mission, Maya sat alone in a small concrete room at Bagram Airfield, waiting. She'd been relieved of duty the moment her Apache touched down at the forward base, and military police had escorted her to what was essentially a holding cell. No charges had been filed yet, but everyone knew what was coming: a court-martial for disobeying direct orders in combat. The door opened, and Colonel Mitchell entered with Major Stone and 2 officers Maya didn't recognize. Stone's arm was in a sling from the mission, but his smirk was intact. The colonel's face was stone-cold professional, but Maya could see the anger burning in his eyes. Captain Rodriguez, Colonel Mitchell began, taking a seat across from her at the metal table. Do you understand the gravity of what you've done? Yes, sir, I disobeyed direct orders. You did more than that. You endangered an entire mission, acted outside your authority, and showed complete disregard for the chain of command. His voice was getting louder with each word. Your reckless actions could have gotten people killed. Maya looked up from her hands for the first time. Sir, with respect, my actions saved 6 American lives. The SEAL team would be dead if I'd followed orders and withdrawn. Major Stone leaned forward with his good arm. Your actions weren't heroic, Rodriguez. They were insubordinate and dangerous. A real soldier follows orders, even when they don't like them. One of the unknown officers, a thin man with silver hair and captain's bars, spoke up. Captain Rodriguez, I'm Captain James Walsh from the Judge Advocate General's office. I need to inform you that you're facing potential charges of disobeying direct orders, reckless endangerment, and conduct unbecoming an officer. Maya nodded. She'd expected this from the moment she decided to stay in that valley. I understand, sir. The maximum penalty for these charges, especially given they occurred in a combat zone, could include dismissal from service, forfeiture of all pay and allowances, and up to 10 years confinement. Captain Walsh continued. Do you wish to make a statement? Maya was quiet for a long moment. She thought about her father, who'd taught her about honor and duty. She thought about her brother Miguel, who'd always believed in her. Most of all, she thought about Chief Thompson and his 5 teammates, who were alive today because she'd made the hardest decision of her life. Sir, I've served my country for 6 years. I've never disobeyed an order before, and I've never my duty, but yesterday, I faced a choice between following orders and saving American lives. I chose to save those lives, and I'd make the same choice again. Colonel Mitchell's face darkened. That kind of attitude is exactly why women don't belong in combat roles. You let your emotions override your judgment and put everyone at risk. The words hit Maya like a physical blow. After everything she'd accomplished, everything she'd proven, it still came back to her gender. She felt her temper flare, but forced herself to remain calm. Sir, my decision wasn't based on emotion. It was based on tactical assessment and situational awareness. The intelligence was flawed. The mission parameters were wrong, and abandoning those SEALs would have been wrong. Your job wasn't to make those assessments, Major Stone interjected. Your job was to follow orders. That's what real soldiers do. The door opened again and Chief Petty Officer Marcus Thompson entered the room. Maya was surprised to see him. She'd heard the SEAL team was being debriefed separately. Thompson was a tall, lean man with graying hair and intelligent eyes. He wore his dress uniform, and Maya noticed he walked with a slight limp from his ordeal. Excuse me, Colonel, Thompson said politely. I requested permission to speak on Captain Rodriguez's behalf. Colonel Mitchell looked annoyed. Chief, that's not necessary. We're handling this matter internally. With respect, sir, I think it is necessary. Thompson's voice carried the quiet authority of a man who'd spent 15 years in the world's most elite military unit. Captain Rodriguez saved my life and the lives of my 5 teammates. I think that deserves to be heard. Captain Walsh gestured to an empty chair. Please, Chief, have a seat. Thompson sat down and looked directly at Maya. Captain, I want you to know that every member of Alpha Team owes you our lives. What you did yesterday was the bravest thing I've witnessed in 15 years of combat operations. Colonel Mitchell shifted uncomfortably. Chief, we appreciate your gratitude, but Captain Rodriguez still disobeyed direct orders. Yes, sir, she did, and thank God for that. Thompson's voice was firm. Colonel, with respect, your intelligence was completely wrong. We weren't ambushed during our original mission, we were betrayed. Someone leaked our position and mission parameters to the enemy. The room went silent. Maya felt her heart racing. A betrayal would explain everything: the perfect ambush setup, the false information about the SEAL team's location, the coordinated enemy response. That's a serious accusation. Chief, Captain Walsh said carefully. It's not an accusation, sir, it's a fact. During our captivity, one of the enemy commanders spoke English and knew details about our mission that only someone with access to classified briefings could have known. Thompson reached into his uniform pocket and pulled out a small recording device. I managed to record part of a conversation between enemy commanders. Our intelligence people should find it very interesting. Colonel Mitchell's face had gone pale. Chief, why wasn't this information included in your initial debrief? Because I wanted to make sure Captain Rodriguez was treated fairly first. Sir, if she hadn't disobeyed your order to withdraw, my team would be dead, and you'd never know there was a security breach. Major Stone looked increasingly uncomfortable. Chief, that doesn't change the fact that she disobeyed direct orders. Military discipline requires, Major, Thompson interrupted, his voice taking on a harder edge. With respect, you were ready to abandon my team in that valley. Captain Rodriguez was the only one who had the courage to stay and fight. The room fell silent again. Maya could see the wheels turning in Captain Walsh's mind. A security breach would change everything about this case. Chief Thompson, Captain Walsh said carefully, would you be willing to testify on Captain Rodriguez's behalf at any potential court-martial proceedings? Absolutely, sir. And so would every member of my team. Colonel Mitchell stood up abruptly. I think we need to reassess this inquiry pending a full investigation of the security concerns raised by Chief Thompson. As the officers filed out of the room, Thompson lingered behind Captain Rodriguez. I want you to know something. In my 15 years as a SEAL, I've worked with hundreds of soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, male and female. You're one of the finest warriors I've ever had the privilege to serve alongside. Maya felt tears threatening, but she blinked, then back. Thank you, Chief. That means everything to me. The fight's not over yet, Thompson said quietly. But you won't face it alone. You have allies now, whether you know it or not. After Thompson left, Maya sat alone in the room again, but somehow, the concrete walls didn't feel quite as confining. As they had that morning, for the first time since landing her damaged Apache, she allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, truth and justice might prevail. Outside the small window, she could see Apache helicopters conducting training flights, their rotors beating the air with mechanical precision. Soon, Maya hoped, she'd be back up there with them, but first, she had to survive the storm she'd created by choosing to do what was right instead of what was ordered. The battle for her career was just beginning. 3 weeks later, Maya sat in a military courtroom at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. The preliminary hearing had been delayed twice as investigators dug deeper into Chief Thompson's allegations of a security breach. Now, finally, her fate would be decided. The courtroom was packed with more people than Maya had expected. Chief Thompson and his entire SEAL team sat in the front row, all in their dress uniforms. Captain Lisa Park was there, along with Sergeant Ramirez and several other crew members who'd worked with Maya over the years. Even her brother Miguel had taken leave to attend. But what surprised Maya most was seeing several senior officers she didn't recognize, including a general with more ribbons on his chest than she could count. This had clearly become more than a simple court-martial for disobeying orders. Captain Walsh, who had transitioned from investigator to Maya's defense counsel, leaned over to whisper to her. The investigation team found some very interesting things. I think you're going to be surprised by how this turns out. The military judge, Colonel Sarah Martinez, called the proceedings to order. This hearing will determine whether Captain Maya Rodriguez should face court-martial for disobeying direct orders during combat operations in Afghanistan. Captain Walsh, you may present your opening statement. Captain Walsh stood up, his bearing confident. Your Honor, what happened in that valley in Afghanistan 3 weeks ago wasn't insubordination, it was heroism. Captain Rodriguez made a split-second decision to save American lives, and in doing so, she uncovered a security breach that goes to the very heart of our military operations. The prosecutor, Major David Chen, responded with his own opening. Your Honor, regardless of the outcome, Captain Rodriguez willfully disobeyed direct orders from her commanding officer in a combat zone. Military discipline depends on following orders, not on individual soldiers deciding which orders they agree with. The first witness was Colonel Mitchell himself. Under oath, he described the mission briefing and Maya's subsequent disobedience of his direct orders to withdraw. His testimony was factual but cold, painting Maya as an insubordinate officer who'd endangered the entire mission. Colonel Mitchell. Captain Walsh began his cross-examination. Were you aware at the time of the mission that your intelligence was completely incorrect? Intelligence is never perfect in combat situations. We act on the best information available, but were you aware that the intelligence had been deliberately falsified? Colonel Mitchell shifted uncomfortably. That's still under investigation. Captain Walsh walked to the evidence table and picked up a folder. Colonel, are you familiar with Major Derek Stone's financial records? The courtroom went silent. Maya looked at Major Stone, who was sitting near the back of the room. His face had gone white. I don't understand the relevance, Colonel Mitchell replied. Major Stone received 3 payments of $50,000 each into an offshore account. Over the past 6 months, the payments were traced to sources connected to Taliban leadership in the Kunar province. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Colonel Martinez banged her gavel for order. Maya felt her world spinning. Stone had been selling intelligence to the enemy. Your Honor, Major Chen objected. This is outside the scope of the current proceedings. On the contrary, Captain Walsh replied, this goes directly to the heart of why Captain Rodriguez's actions were not only justified, but necessary. The next witness was Chief Thompson. His testimony was powerful and detailed, describing how the enemy fighters had known details about the SEAL team's mission that only someone with high-level access could have possessed. Chief Thompson, Captain Walsh asked, in your opinion, what would have happened if Captain Rodriguez had followed orders and withdrawn from the valley? My team would be dead, sir. All 6 of us. We were scheduled for execution within hours of the fail.